Everyone, welcome to our July session of our webinar series. As you know, we've been actively doing this every single month, bringing in some incredible guests. And let me tell you, when it comes to guests, you are all in for an absolute treat, one that I'm extremely excited about. But before we get started, I just want to go over a few housekeeping rules just to keep it flowing smoothly. If you are not at a point where you are asking a question, please do keep your microphones muted just to keep it respectful for everyone else tuning in. We know how crazy it can get when the microphone feedback starts kicking in. But also, please feel free to turn on your webcam so we can all see your lovely faces and interact with you directly. Turning on your webcam is very much encouraged. My name is Mahfouz Chowdhury. My job today is just to ensure that all your questions are being answered today. So if you do have any questions at any point during today's discussion, please do add it to the chat below or use the raise hand feature, and I would more than encourage you to unmute your mic at that time and directly ask your questions to these incredible guests. I'm very excited to introduce the two guests today. I have to say these are two individuals that I've personally got to know quite well over the last little while, spend a tremendous amount of time with them, and as a result of that, it almost seemed like a no-brainer to have these two brilliant minds being a part of today's conversation. So today we have Michael Graham from NASI, and we have Ben Tchoubineh from LEXX that is joining us for a virtual panel of a lot of great discussions that we will have about the day one technician and the day one readiness. Before we get started, I'd love to, Michael and Ben, I'd love to just give you an opportunity to introduce yourself, share a little bit about yourselves, share a little bit about the organization, and then excited to get the conversation started. Michael, would love to start with you.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Mahfouz, and it's great to see everybody on here. As always, happy to take any questions that come up, and interested to hear your thoughts as well. So my name is Michael Graham, founder CEO at North American Space Institute. I have a background in manufacturing and production here in Canada. Ever since I was little, involved with developing and sorry, just give me a sec. That's that.
It's always when it happens during live webinars. I got to tell you more than anything else.
Yeah, I'll guarantee that we're live. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, where was I? Oh, manufacturing, production through my whole life in terms of development, scaling of different products and manufacturing it in Ottawa and surrounding area. Through that time, really realized what scaling means. I had my first couple businesses coming right out of college. My usual attitude of if you guys don't do it, I'll do it. So that's where those came in. Then I got a regular position at Canadian Space Agency, so got to see a lot of very bright people come up with some great ideas on how to get things into space, and realized that some of the basic things I knew about scaling and development weren't being applied. They'd say, "Oh, we're going to scale next year," which really meant they're making 10 of them, not 2 of them. Whereas for me, that meant we're building an assembly line, and there's production, QA, QC processes, and obviously workforce changes with that as well. It goes from an engineering R&D team to a production tech team. So massive differences there. But an entrepreneur in government institution it isn't going to be a long interaction. So that's what prompted me to start my first couple companies. So there's another company called OrbitShare, which is facilities operations of space assets. And yeah, so from there, primes and SMEs were looking for some of the techs that we had. And so that's when we got involved with CCAA. I see Leslie's on the call here today, and actually helped initiate and write the occupational standard for space tech. So we had engineers and no techs. And so we went ahead and got that in. I'm now working with the ANSI and ANAB folks in the States to get that replicated there as well. And it's a process that's well recognized with primes. They're used to using that in their aviation and other defense sectors. So even though we're space focused, a lot of things that we're developing will have cross-sectional, cross-sector implications as well. So knowing that, falling to my point, that's why one of the reasons we found a great partner in the US, Ben, and our other partners at Alliance Cyber. So there's LEXX and Alliance Cyber, and they'll talk to you more about that, where they've successfully had commercial training programs. So we had the space sector experience, and they've really brought in that part as well. If we're being real about getting people ready for space, having a presence in the US and specifically on the Space Coast is very important. So that's a bit of background.
Yeah, excellent. And I'm very excited for the audience and the community to learn more about LEXX. I know we've been announcing a little bit about our partnership through our virtual channels, but Ben, would love to just hear a little bit of backstory for our group here about what LEXX does and a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Mahfouz. Hi, I'm Ben Tchoubineh. I'm the Chief Executive of LEXX. LEXX is actually a new brand. It's been live since January 1st of this year, but it is in fact a union of three other companies that we've had since 1998. So those would be Phoenix TS, 30 Bird Media, and Cyber Phoenix, which bring together lots and lots of learning experience and modalities globally. So yes, so we've been in the learning business since, actually I've been in the learning business since 1994. So about, was that 32 years or so? Dating myself. And in that time have done lots of work with the US government, but also corporations globally. We started out with classroom learning and then went on to e-learning and publishing. And so combining all of these capabilities together into LEXX is very exciting. When Michael approached us last year, it was perfect timing as LEXX was kind of unifying and our capabilities were growing. And we were looking to grow globally with a new globally friendly brand that unifies all our capabilities. It was the perfect time for us to unify our capabilities with Michael's, with NASI. We want to bring that scalability, that learning management, that global reach, as well as our know-how in ensuring that our students not only learn effectively, but also maintain and continue to learn throughout their professional lives and are ready to get started as soon as they get certified and become effective members of the space community very quickly, and then continue to learn moving forward. So that's what we want to bring to the table. We're so excited. You know, space has been on my mind as a child. I was that geek who loved to watch Star Wars and Star Trek and wanted to be part of that. So I'm very grateful for NASI to bring us into this very, very, I think, exciting project to at least make my dream a reality.
Yeah, it's a very exciting conversation to have. There's so much to unpack just between the two introductions that you both gave. But you know, you really think about why we're here today and why this virtual session exists, and a lot of it just comes down to a lot of the audacious statements we're seeing in this industry around the space economy, right? We're seeing this $613 billion space economy in North America right now, and this ongoing narrative about how traditional training models today just can't keep up. And it can't keep pace with it. And when we're looking at a lot of the reasons why, we're hearing a lot of different opinions around shifting political cycles and procurement silos. I'm very excited for the audience to hear a bit more about what's different about this model. And Michael, I'd love to maybe start with you and just maybe have you comment a little bit about NASI's framework and what it does that helps with workforce development and human infrastructure, and how it allows it to remain resilient, scalable, and globally aligned with all of those political cycles that are taking place at the moment. Michael, you might be muted. Give that let me just see if okay.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, so I'll do my best. There's lots to unpack there, but Yeah, so the big thing here is, again, typical attitude problem. If they don't fix it, we will. And one of the things is when a lot of academic institutions are focused on the student, they really focus on starting their career, but not really continuing on and adjusting with them and being really career supporters. And so what we're doing is really developing our framework for a system of record on your career. So as you move forward, you want to upskill, reskill, change direction. We can support you with that. And if we can't directly provide those credentials and those certificates, we'll be able to give you the expertise to bring you along. That's why we brought in the WhatsApp group to start with before we take anybody's money or get anybody signed up. The number one thing is to develop the community and make sure that everyone's being held into account. And if there's anything that we can do to help, we'll do that. But really, one of the big things here is, regardless of whatever political cycle or whatever's going on, the people are the people, and most of us are, trying to do the best we can with what we have. And I'll give you a perfect example here, just for the U.S. folks. I think it was 2008, 2009. Obama announced there was, I think it was 300,000 or 400,000 shovel-ready jobs, and the main problem is who is that? What are we talking about? What's going on? And then even in this current administration, the Department of War just announced, it's called, let me see if I remember here, something about Build Freedom campaign, and it's very much centered around experiential learning, bringing in people into the trades, and getting people ready for the actual workforce and what's going to be required for sovereign capabilities and capacities. So I think you can see across whatever is going on, there's always this requirement. And obviously traditional academic and traditional large institutions have a role to play, but they haven't been able to, tighten that circle of skills and competency requirements to actually being able to train people in a fast way. So that's what we're doing. So using space as the beachfront, there isn't as much academic inertia to move that forward. So we're really pushing hard on the space front and using those lessons learned and those frameworks to then be applied into whether it's aviation or automotive or whatever else, shipbuilding. Yeah. Yeah.
We are, in my mind, in the stone ages of the space industry. I mean, we move forward a couple hundred years, and this is just the beginning, and we're just kind of putting together the pieces. The 60s and the 70s were prehistory, and here in this particular environment, industry has taken on the fact that we're going to have to hire out of other industries because we don't actually have a native workforce. And in that, we will have to hire and then train our own workforce and manage the training of our own workforce. Several challenges come from that. First of all, there is a long lag between hiring and then actually having the people be effective. And then secondly, each organization, the big primes, the SpaceXs of the world, might train their technicians in a different way. And so then there's no standardized practice or approach to technician learning. What NASI is bringing to the table is an amazing structure of scalable, but also hands-on and day one ready training structure. So what I mean by that is we have, it starts with self-paced learning, e-learning, which is scalable. But then we are going to facilitate that training with hands-on virtual reality training, which is, I think, very modern and new and really exciting. And then we have these physical in-person training. It's a small part of the entire training process, but it is extremely useful and important. It's actually, I think it's one of the most important things where people will actually travel, or we have these mobile units that Michael's going to talk about. That's going to actually allow for real hands-on learning, but also scalable globally. And then after the full training and certification, we will have a continuous learning mechanism through our CEUs, and we're going to bring in the LEXX coach to, which is an AI learning module, which allows for ongoing innovative learning solutions. So all of that put together means that the NASI LEXX partnership will bring to the space industry finally a scalable, effective, standardized, and powerful learning model that's going to, I feel, revolutionize and enable the true growth of this incredible industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And the enablement part is the real key here. I'll focus in a little bit on some of the hands-on learning and certification. So one of the big things that most new grads, new students run into is when they get out, they have a hard time articulating who they were and what they did in the variety of different projects, hands-on projects that they did in their academic career. So whether it's taking part of the America's Cup, where you're part of the rocketry team, or the variety of different teams across US and Canada and across the world really that are developing rockets and launch capabilities. Who are you on that team and how do you know? And the only way to really know is to have some level of certification where somebody's actually witnessed you complete that task and witnessed you do that competency. And what that means also from the employer perspective is, since they know who you are and they know what your skills and competencies are, their internal training requirement, when they go to bring you on, they don't need 6 months to train you to actually do the job. They know that you're, as Ben said, day one ready, because you've done it before. You may need to understand the specifics around the types of instruments and equipment, but that's something that anybody's going to have to learn. And to that point, what Ben was alluding to was a product that we have called OrbitLab. And essentially what that is true turnkey option. So in the same way that, the techs are day one ready, these labs are day one ready. They literally show up in an ISO container, and it has all the instruments, equipment that somebody in the industry is expected to use. It shows up, you literally turn it on. So you plug it in, turn it on, and we can virtually support anybody there through our network of experts. So whether it's, you need some expertise in why there's a leak in a TVAC, or you having some mode in a vibration test, you'll be able to ask industry experts on the spot about what the hell's going on. And so to me, that's really the value proposition. I can go out to MIT right now on their website, and there's free open curriculum. You can go and look at it, and so the actual information isn't so much the value proposition. The value proposition is the community, which is what we're talking about with the WhatsApp group to start with. It's about curating who the knowledge experts really are and having you have access to them, and then supporting you in your path forward in validated ways that, we're talking directly to primes, SMEs, startups, and understanding and validating what those skills and competencies are that they need, and making sure that your career is in alignment with what's coming, so that when you get done your certification, or you want to add on some of the programs through LEXX, you can actually really help the organizations that you're going to. So yeah,
this was one of the main reasons, Michael, that LEXX wanted to be partners with you guys, because your program has actual hands-on components, like people actually working with things, with machinery. I mean, all the names of it, but you're the technical guru. But the fact that our students, the NASI LEXX students, are going to have that experience makes them day one ready. I'm just so excited about that. And
being able to do that anywhere too, right? So whether they're, if they're not on the Space Coast, maybe they're in Idaho or Indiana or Arizona or wherever it is, we can get enough interest together that we can actually provide those hands-on facilities, so that if and when you wanted, if you're upskilling, reskilling, and you have a family or you have whatever it is, you can validate to your future employer on at Vandenberg and on the West Coast, or if you're headed east, they can validate before you even show up that you know what you're doing. So it was,
and hopefully eventually globally, right?
yes, exactly. Yeah.
And so these OrbitLab mobile labs, this is like the most exciting thing, I think. Like how big are these things?
Yeah, they're standard ISO containers. So ISO container, those containers that you see going down the highway, some are 20 foot long, some are 40 foot long. We have a standard 40-foot one for the training facilities. And so they literally show up ready to go. They have clean rooms in them. They have everything ready to go. And so there's already the infrastructure, the global infrastructure to supply that anywhere that you want to go. If you happen to be doing a launch or a AIT in French Guiana, where there's a launch facility, you could do that there as well. So it's really, I suspect we'll be moving more and more to the virtual side of things, but being able to say that you are able to do those types of processes eliminates a lot of risk in terms of multi-million-dollar, $100 million, multi-billion-dollar programs, especially if it's a heavy science article, or maybe you're moving too quickly and you need to replenish what you have in low Earth orbit. You can do that as well. So,
yeah, and I mean, I'm seeing kind of the primes purchasing some of these modular systems and OrbitLab mobile labs. But also, if there's a big enough group anywhere,
yeah,
we could provide that hands-on. And of course, if they're single students, they could come to our centers, which we are working on our first center in the Space Coast. There's also a center up in Canada that's coming online, and hopefully we'll have multiple centers globally at some point as well. So this is a very exciting part. So imagine, just to kind of bring this to a close, the initial e-learning to kind of get people started in the concepts, the virtual reality training to get people used to virtual reality hands-on learning, and then this physical in-person training, actually touching the systems and working with experts. And then after that, the continuous learning moving forward through AI coaching.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, there's nothing better.
Yeah, exactly. And I think one of the things that gets lost on the virtual side is people think that you're just looking at it, or even that you're just interacting with it. There's a time dilation issue. Anyone who's ever done anything with their hands before knows that. I'll use paint. If you're going to paint something, there's a certain amount of time that you can leave your brush before it starts to dry. And if you try and use it again, you're going to contaminate the whole thing. Well, there's certain processes, whether it's rolling fiber or carbon or whatever it is, or sometimes if you have a certain type of, shall we say, gas or temperature that you're trying to maintain during your assembly, integration, your production process, you can actually capture that in the virtualization part of that program. So before you go and spend, thousands, tens of thousands, maybe 100,000 in materials and time, you can make those mistakes virtually. That won't cost you a lot in terms of consumables and subject matter expertise time. It's an incredibly important piece that comes in.
I'm incredibly excited by how much this eliminates, I would say, almost every single bottleneck that prevents someone from scaling. I mean, you're solving the expensive equipment model. You're solving the fact that subject matter experts may not be readily available globally, and now they can be through this model. Can you talk a little bit about the material itself? Let's talk about the credible standards. When we think about CCAA and NASI accreditation, how much of a role does that play in the integration of making sure that the content that's being shared and preparing the students with what they need, that they feel confident on day one that they can walk into the workforce and do what they do best.
Yeah, well, it's really replicating what we've learned in aviation and other sectors where primes already understand this process. It's a certification process they use. So for CCAA in specific, they use it in aviation. So whether you're a Lockheed or a Pratt & Whitney or whomever it is, they understand and they've already implemented this type of process with their aviation techs. And so when we're talking about scaling up and doing production for space, the primes already understand and they already have experience, and as well as the government and department, defense departments, they know what that credentialing process looks like, and they recognize it internationally as well. So it's incredibly important. And the other part too is the certifications that are developed, those skills and competencies are given by the industry. So it's not a rigid or as rigid as say an engineering path where you have things that you need to learn along the way. These are skills and competencies that are required in the workforce right now, and so that cycle is a lot faster, and so that gives you the confidence and proof from other sectors that this is the way to go.
And we have experience on the U.S. side with the Department of War's requirements with 8140 to be ANSI accredited, and we are moving in that direction. I think the combination of CCAA and ANSI accreditation for our certifications means that we'll be a globally accepted and approved standard, really, for organizations to follow. And thus, when their employees are being trained by us, they know and they have assurance that what they're learning is standardized in a standardized mechanism and accepted. We have contacts in the Space Force. We are working with primes, and so all of them are beholden to these kinds of standards, right? So we want to make sure that our certification follows the same blueprints in terms of an accreditation standard to ensure there's trust and that our processes really result in knowledgeable students who can then be ready day one.
Yeah, and the way that the programs are structured too, it generally means that you can be working while you're learning as well, which is one of my favorite aspects about this whole thing. I was never a big believer in that you should be having to sacrifice, in that way, especially if you're doing experiential learning. So there is a part that you have to be in person to do, and that's typically done through the day, but that's relatively minimal in regards to the overall program. And that's one of the reasons why we're marching down the path of the virtualization part as well. So yeah, incredibly important that people are able to live life and continue to get experience. So if even as you're going through their certification, if you get a job in a position that you're being trained for, that you need your certification in, who are we to stop you from making sure that you can capture that opportunity? So
yeah, there's always been kind of in education this age-old conversation between which one is more effective, right? The online e-learning, self-paced, or classroom, and virtual reality learning is really coming alive now. But what if you have all of the above, right? And you use the right technology, the right mechanism, the right model, the right mode at the right time. I think in that regard, in a scalable way, what we're offering is very powerful.
yeah, and especially too, if you have all of them available to you and you have the community around you that can help you with other avenues. I was always a practical person, so I was able to help people with that. But then I was good, was fortunate to have very smart people around me that were able to help me on the academic part of things and could walk me through. So both are incredibly valuable. But like I said, you need that community around you to really support you in that.
Right. And I see Terry has a question. Hi, Terry. I hope you're doing well. Yeah, the certifications are already accredited under CCAA and will be accredited. We're working on getting them accredited with ANAB, and those would be accredited under the umbrella ISO 17024. Let's see, Ray, given how much is moving in U.S. federal space policy right now, are there any regulatory or compliance changes you're tracking that could affect how this training is delivered or credentialed? Do you see any headwinds in the regulation part? Michael, do you want to take a crack at that?
Yeah. Well, there's always things that come up in every administration, whether it's in the U.S. or not, Canada and in Europe. They all put their own flavor on what's really happening. But to my first example, whether it's shovel-ready positions given by Obama or the new Freedom, sorry, I keep missing the Build Freedom campaign that just launched, I think it was last week. They'll have a certain flavor to it, but it's the same process. We have these positions, they're open and available, we're trying to solve for it. So as long as you come at it from that way, I don't see a lot. Normally it's about messaging, about what it is that we're actually doing. In Canada, one of the verbiages that gets used is keeping the vision sold. So, how are we leveraging the current defense investment to a long-lasting, change in the sector? And so when you're approaching it from that angle, you're already solving for credentialing or regulation issues because you're building that into the pie. So in the same way where we're staying with students from the very beginning, building the community first, and then as things come up, we'll work together to make sure that we have the best possible path forward for previously credentialed certified students and ongoing certified students. So we're building that right into it. We expect things to change because that's the only thing that stays the same. And so we're doing our best to make sure that we're supportive in that way. So short answer is yes, but that's if you're not building for regulation changes, then I'm not sure you're sort of setting yourself up. So
yeah, and I'd say on LEXX's part, LEXX and its previous iterations have been government contractors since 2004, and there's been a lot of changes since then through multiple administrations, and we've just learned to be nimble and to ensure that as long as we remain accredited through international organizations like ISO, then I think we just adapt and move forward. But I also think that our program is meant for more than just government regulatory environments, because we want to be a global program. So we're going to deal with multiple regulatory environments. We want our program to be useful to the private space sector. That's it. We just want to be useful to them. And in that regard, as long as we remain simply true to our mission of creating day one ready technicians that are able to provide services and be a useful part of the private space industry globally, then we've met our mission.
There's been a word that's been thrown around several times during this webinar, which is community. And I don't think often enough the word community gets defined the way that I want to define it in today's call. It's a common value proposition that I think I hear in a lot of organizations. I'd love to share just my own personal experience with this community, and then I want to hear from the both of you. I do think, as someone that's spent time in several different types of industries in these type of verticals, I remember getting up in front of a room one day and saying that I just haven't seen another industry that has a community like this. And I think a lot about the baby steps, such as the WhatsApp group that's available, that's publicly, it's free. And I think about how many industries lack the ability where someone that is trying to break into the field can immediately connect on a one-to-one basis with someone who's well established and can open some doors for you along the way. And the memory that comes back to me was I remember that in the WhatsApp community, there was someone that was in the middle of competing at a hackathon, and it was a weekend, you know, and it's important to note it was a weekend. It was a Saturday where you don't expect someone that's busy to be available. And I remember they just threw a message up in there saying, hey, I'm working on this idea, but I have so many questions. It is in the space sector, and I'm not sure what to do with it. Does anyone have time to maybe answer a few questions? And someone that is very well established and arguably one of the most busiest person in that chat jumped right in on a Saturday afternoon and said, hey, let's get on a call together. I think I can help you with this problem. And they've got on a call together, and very quickly that individual was able to take those fresh ideas and go back into the hackathon and implement it immediately. You know, we spend time with a lot of space technicians and a lot of students, and the number one complaint we hear about the traditional model is that they've kind of felt like they're left hanging after graduation. It's like, now you're on your own, you know, fly, you little bird, you figure it out. And it's challenging for them to know what the next steps are. And I think there's so much value in the understanding that there's so much more that happens after they finish, that you're there for their entire career life cycle. So I shared one example, which is availability and the ability to connect with others that are credible in this industry. I'd love to hear a little bit more about what that post-graduation phase looks like in our model today.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have a little tiny example even in the chat where Leslie had a quick question and we're able to make the connection. So, you know, just as a little microcosm, that was a great example. But yeah, back to your note on community. I think too, students and new grads, they feel like that there's an issue of understanding of who to ask and what and who to approach. A lot of times just existing and giving people the hope and just providing that backstop is enough to give students and people who are being retrained the confidence to move ahead and try, knowing that they can go to a community and ask the question directly and get a response. Often that in and of itself is valuable. So sometimes it doesn't show from direct questions, but just knowing that they're able to do that is really the enabler. And once you have a few examples like that, and you know you can reach out and talk to somebody and see what their thoughts are quickly. And a lot of times too, depending where everyone is in their career, I know for me, I sort of discovered that I love that part of it. I ended up one of my favorite things to do is secondary school outreach, and we have a couple different programs here that yeah, it's definitely one of those things that I enjoy quite a bit. And I think too, when you're at that part of your career where you want to give back and provide some guidance, it's a very easy way to do that. And then same thing with new certified people, or you know, our new techs, is being able to reach out and say, hey, I'm looking at getting this type of engineer or that type of engineering. I will say that part as well. One of the big feedbacks I've gotten from a lot of different types of engineers who are currently working in the space, they all say, well, it would have been really handy if I could have worked in the industry for a while to figure out what it was I wanted to do first. So I have a lot of mechanical engineers that are more computer science people now. I have some computer science people who are actually into electrical, even though that's not necessarily their background. They probably would have known that if they had some experience ahead of time. So yeah, community is the number one thing that we really want to focus on.
Yeah, the community engagement piece, I think, you know, I come from the cybersecurity certification world, and many cybersecurity certification programs are missing that piece, right? There's a lot of history there, but you know, once you get, let's say, your CompTIA certification or your EC Council certification, there isn't a very strong sense of community besides, hey, take this other training after that. And what we want to build, especially through LEXX, is that community where our graduates can maintain a relationship together and get support from each other and have a network. That's number one. And I think number two, again, with the LEXX Coach AI, a way to ensure that without are students really having to lift a finger, the AI coach will update them on an ongoing basis with new knowledge, new capabilities, new technologies, ongoing. And then their certifications are going to have to be updated as usual, right? And that is one of the requirements of ISO. But in a way, it would be very easy. It'll be very easy for them to update their certifications or maintain their certification because they will have maintained their learning on an ongoing basis through our AI solution, as well as through the community and a stronger community there. Again, the goal being standardized learning and a broad, generalized set of information that is common among all our graduates because of the community effect, as well as the ongoing maintenance of their learning, through continuing education units maintained through either the LEXX AI coach or ongoing courses that we would provide.
Excellent. Another really good question just coming in through chat, and want to get your thoughts on this. So on the topic of the current estimate of maybe 50,000 range in the short term, how many qualified are trained, or how many are qualified or trained to do the work today? And then are these numbers North America or global? One of the stats, and when we do share the replay of this webinar, we're going to be including show notes and sources to a lot of the stats. But one of the audacious stats that I think led to today's session was that more than 60% of advanced aerospace organizations have reported that there's a severe technical talent shortage, which is terrifying, but also a big part of why these conversations, I think, are being taken more seriously than ever today. Michael, Ben, I'd love to get maybe some of your thoughts on the stats, or if there's other astounding stats that maybe I don't have in my show notes here, and what are some of the things that are being done about it outside of what we're talking about right now?
Yeah, well, there's a few different levels. So one is even outside of space, so sector, regardless of whatever sector you're in, there's a major demographic issue of subject matter experts retiring or moving on, and then combine that with the people who are coming through the programs after secondary school of even wanting that type of position or understanding what those positions would be. So you have sort of a double-edged issue, like I said, even outside of space. And then you combine, when you look at space specifically, one of the highest growth sectors in the world, and now you've just started compounding the issue. To get specific numbers is incredibly difficult because a lot of the big players, SpaceX and Blue Origin, they tend to verticalize their engagement, which is fine for them, but it makes it very difficult as to what are their actual problems, what are their solutions, because they have to maintain. They're publicly traded, right? They're big public companies. You can't say certain things, and so but overall we're looking at over 300K shortage over the next 5 years, and then that also depends on what you call a space tech. I suspect that will change altogether as well as you move from projects to ads, is usually my verbiage there. So basically, as you go from developing one project where you have a team of engineers that follow that product all the way through from inception idea all the way through to launch and into space, now you're into production. And how do you compete with that is you have engineers that go through their processes, and then you have QA, QC processes that the techs follow. So so even as you move forward, how that 50,000 and how that 300,000 gets parsed will be wildly variable. But I think we're seeing that regardless of sector, where it's no longer that you have to have a it's no longer that you have a or option of you can't have an arts degree or have a blue collar worker. You can have both. You can be you can have your arts degree and still do blue collar work. There's no issue with that. So I think even from that perspective as well, it's a ongoing reframe and change that we're experiencing. So
I want to double down on that, Michael. I think I totally agree with you. that whatever numbers we come up with today, I don't think we have any concept of the actual need that's going to be generated in the next 5 to 10 years in the space industry globally. There's just an incredible level of innovation coming, as well as evolution and growth, and the opportunities as a result for a need for a workforce and opportunities for those people are going to grow exponentially, I believe. Right. So again, like I said, we're in the stone ages of the industry, and when we start to get into the history part of it, and the actual growth of the industry, SpaceX going public is only one sign that the industry is finally starting to mature. But then that maturity will come with lots and change and evolution at a faster and faster rate. So I believe our challenge at NASI isn't necessarily, per Ray's question, changing government landscapes. Our challenge is going to be to maintain and stay up to date and keep up with that innovation and growth. So we have to look at our program, especially because of these mobile units, that they're hard assets, right? So I believe our challenge will be to maintain these assets up to date and to ensure that we're scalable enough with our hands-on training, because we can be scalable with the virtual reality training and the e-learning. That's an easy part of it, and we can update it quickly. But I think that's where I believe we're going to be challenged, and we're going to have to put a lot of investment into. And I think that the numbers, as we see them now, in my mind, I foresee are going to be eclipsed.
Yeah, I'll add one more note there as well, which is we haven't even gotten into cross-sector skills and competency applications. So say, for example, you, as a space systems tech, you can work in a clean room with the TVAC and an N. Those are similar, if not the same, skill sets that are required on the chip building side, and in terms of photonics and a bunch of other things. There's certain types of welds that you need to get done. Obviously there's different fabrications. So even beyond that, of just looking at sovereign workforce capability and specifically around supply chain, where we parse what we call a space systems tech, maybe they have applications into other sectors as well. And it's not a maybe, I know they do, but yeah, so that's going to be another part of the conversation, as well as making sure that whether you're in aviation, shipbuilding, space, that you have opportunities to go get relevant skill sets in those other sectors and be able to carry those across. Yeah, it also means a more fun career too, if you can build ships and build space stuff. And yeah.
Gentlemen, this has been extremely valuable, and I appreciate all the additional insight, even beyond some of the questions that are being asked today. To bring this home for our audience, I think about those that are tuning in live, but also those that will be watching the replays. And I think about the prime contractors, the defense partners, the academic incubators that are looking to actually adopt and implement this blueprint. I want to hear from the both of you. What would you say is the most important, the single most important operational step that they must take today to ensure that the workforce is mission ready from shift one, from the very beginning?
Go ahead, Michael.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, so like I said, the very first thing is just to be really clear and maybe another look at what your skills and competency requirements really are, like what they actually are, and take a look at what your outstanding workforce positions are, and see if there's something that's taken for granted in terms of internal training requirements that you're saying, okay, I need an engineer, but really what you're saying is you need an engineer because that's been the proven mechanism for training somebody internally to do the work that we're saying that really a space systems tech needs to do. So really it's a bit of a reanalysis as to what it is that's actually required. Another layer to that is we hear a lot about the requirement, specifically in space, around systems engineering and experience with that. That speaks to a smart person problem of, as you go from projects to pads, so going from projects to commercial, hitting that complexity horizon of, you think that if you just build a better system, you can overcome the technical and workforce challenges, when in reality, you need a standardized set of skills and competencies in your workforce, and a standardized set of operations and capabilities that will then alleviate a lot of those issues. And those have been lessons learned in the past that you can apply into space. So to me, that's one of the big hurdles. That's one of the education pieces that I've been going through, is trying to talk to HR people involved in HR and talent development, and making sure that they understand that requirement. The other part is knowing that, understanding what your capability and capacity requirements are going to be in the future. Typically, it requires a lot of capital in terms of assets and hard assets. So those would be the number 1 and 2, and we can help with both of those, obviously, with the workforce and the OrbitLab. So
I want to say, I feel incredibly fortunate in LEXX partnering with NASI, because as you all can tell, Michael is extremely knowledgeable, lives and breathes space and the technical aspects of aviation and space. And so I think in terms of a learning partner, an organization led by Michael, by someone like Michael, who understands the technology requirements, the technical requirements to his core. So that's number 1. That's important for the organizations that are looking for a workforce development partner to solve some of the major challenges they're facing. This is a really challenging environment right now for them, right? They can't find a ready workforce. There's a lot of learning out there, but not a lot of hands-on, nothing like what we are providing. And an organization such as NASI, with LEXX's support, I think would be a perfect partner to solve those major growth and scalability challenges in standardizing the workforce growth and development and learning, and in enabling a much more scalable workforce, which will allow their organizations to grow a lot more smoothly and be a lot more stable in terms of their presence. So I think, the space industry is no different than any other industry. These same challenges were faced by the health industry, by aviation, by shipping, by manufacturing. You name it, in terms of ensuring that their workforce is ready to go and scalable. So we're here to solve that.
Perfect. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. Just as we bring it home, I want to encourage anyone that is curious to learn more about the Ignite membership or the WhatsApp community. I put a QR code up there. Forgive me that it's highlighted green. I'll try something different next time to not burn your eyes, but it'll have to do. It was the WhatsApp official code. I'm also going to put the WhatsApp link directly in the chat, so that if it's easier for you to click or tap and just jump right in, do. What you're going to find on the other side is, I think, everything we heard today around the idea of community, being able to get instant access to the members that are not only on this call. I know many of you that are on this call today are part of that community already, but also being able to get answers to questions quickly, being the first to know when there's a new webinar or a new session or a new event. Whenever there's market reports or research that gets released, we often share it there first before it goes anywhere else. And of course, the webinar replays, the one you're watching today, as well as the one that we've been doing month over month. Incredible amount of value being dropped over and over again by every single guest that we bring in, being able to give you unlimited access to that type of footage. You'll be able to find all of them there, along with asking questions that maybe you didn't get a chance to today. Michael, Ben, just want to thank you again for the incredible knowledge, and to the community. Yeah, there's some applause coming in. You guys deserve all of it. Thank you again for your time today, and very excited to continue the conversation, and just very grateful for what the both of you and the team are doing for the space economy.
Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks everybody. I appreciate it. Thanks, Mahfouz.
Thank you, everyone. Take care. Bye.